Ladies and gentlemen, on the government side, we don't say that bachelor is illegitimate choice or illegitimate lifestyle. But what we say on the government side is that marital status is a value that government should encourage and actually are encouraging right now. And tax is a good way to encourage the marital status, and that's why we propose. So I'm going to talk about two things in my speech. Firstly, why marital status is a value that government are encouraging and promoting, and secondly, why tax is the best way to encourage marital status. And before that, let's clarify our model. So we impose tax on bachelor. That means that the individuals who do not marry, and it's obvious if you after you got married, you are exempted from bachelor tax. And we think that especially the context in this debate is a country where childbirth is necessary, and such as Asian society or the countries the birth rate is decreasing, like Japan and many developed countries. And we say historically bachelor tax exists. For example, after World War II, because the population decreased, government introduced bachelor tax, and it is historically succeeded. So, of course, even under status quo, government give benefit to marital status. So we think this is extend to this. Yes. Okay. So, firstly, what marital status is a value that government encourages. 2 points here. So firstly, we have to understand that marriage is necessary and contribute to the society. So firstly, we think that marital status creates the human resources which is necessary for the state to exist. For example, if more and more people marry, for example, more and more children will be birthed. And of course, we don't say that all couples will have a baby, but we think that still we think under our paradigm, the child will increase. The number of child will increase. Why it's important? Because especially in the context of the country, such as aging society, we have to understand that the lack of human resources, lack of children, is so problematic. For example, it leads to lack of the labor, for example, and it labor, for example, who financially contribute to the state, and actually, for example, the financial power such as GDP will decrease because of lack of labor or lack of human resources. That's why, for example, in many countries, government is already providing the benefit to the families who have the children, right? We think this is the extent to this benefit. But secondly, we also think marital status is good for social stability, because social stability. We think the family is a good form of good unity for the people to have the responsibility and to share the risk and sustain their life. For example, collective responsibility and liability. When you are borrowing lots of money from the bank and are going to bankrupt, for example, if you have a family, your partner can help you, can save you, and stabilize your life. That's why we have to understand, for the human beings, marital status is good to maintain and to sustain their life and to sustain the country itself. Yes.
So if a couple marries but they still don't have children, would you still be taxing that couple or that married couple? if a couple marries but they do not have children, would you continue to tax those individuals in the spouse?
No, what we say is that marital status itself is good, right? Not about the children, right? But also we have to. Okay, so on to my second point, why tax is the best way to encourage marital status? Two reasons here. Firstly, we think that tax is the best way to take balance between the choice and encouragement. Well, as I said, bachelor is still legitimate choice, and it's a choice of individuals. But so we do not want to force individuals to marry and to have children. But still, we have to understand, as long as the necessity exists to increase the marital status and to increase the children, we think as long as there's a necessity, government should, and as long as it is valuable, government should encourage it. That's why we think tax is the best way to take the balance, right? But secondly, and more importantly, we think the tax is a good way of fair burden sharing, right? We have to understand, under status quo, the people who have the family or people who have the children have to pay much more money than the individuals who do not have families, right? For example, if you have the family, for example, you have to pay for your house workers, for example, and also if you have the children, you have to pay much money for the education for children, for example. And as long as other people who have the marriage or who have the children pay much money for them and contribute to the society, to the state exists, we think the other people who do not marry also have the responsibility, and also they should share the burden to pay the money, right? And we think the money is a good way, because if a bachelor pay tax, that tax used, for example, used for the subsidy for children, for example, or to encourage the marital status or to encourage having children, right? That's why we think as long as unfairness between the people who have the family and who do not have a family exists, government should impose a tax on the people who have less financial burden, right? That's why we think that. So that's why we don't say that bachelor itself is a legitimate choice, but still we say as long as marital status is valuable, a government should promote and should encourage that, and that's why we propose.
Thank you for the Prime Minister for her excellent speech. I'd like to welcome the dear opportunity to make her speech within 7 minutes here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm extremely happy to stand on a position that I can understand this motion the most in any of the motions with the other motions that's provided in this tournament. Because it's about my individual decision, right? It's my individual decision that nobody, like only me myself, can understand the value in, and where the state shouldn't have a say or discrimination toward it, right? But moreover, what we believe is that this motion only victimizes the most vulnerable people in the society who cannot find a partner, unfortunately, right? So that's the reason why we oppose this motion. In my speech, I'd like to talk about two things. Firstly, about how it's unjust to make people pay tax on the basis of family choice. And secondly, about how taking this proposal only victimizes those who are most vulnerable in the society. But before that clarification of the model, so we basically oppose any discrimination, form of discrimination form of marriage benefit to marital status or the tax onto budgets. We generally oppose any discriminations on the basis of choice of the family. But before moving on to my argument, I would like to revert to what the previous speaker said, right? So they said that it's valid. This choice is valid as a criteria to put tax on the people because it provides human resources, right? we think it's fundamentally irrelevant to this debate or contradictory to their principle in the first place, right? Because this motion is not about putting tax on people who don't have children, but it's about who is not getting married, right? So we think at the point that they started talking about human resources, they have the burden to prove to us. They have to also put the tax on the people, on the family that doesn't have family or cannot have the children, right? So that's the contradiction that they have made, and that has to be explained by the other speakers, right? So all other rebuttals are included in my argument. So let me move on to my first issue. So how is it unjust to make people pay tax on the basis of family choices? We suggest the criteria of imposing tax should not be contingent on the family choice for two main reasons. Firstly, because we believe that this is extremely and private choice that only you as an individual to be able to calculate, right? Because we never know what kind of family or relationship in your life you want in your life, right? You might be very cynical about the family, like a person who has seen his parents going through massive conflict in marriage, or we don't understand. We think individual basically is the only actor who can actually calculate the choice and the harm of the choice and benefit of the choice, right? And on this point we think the state has no say on this choice because state is inherently incapable actor to decide what's the happiness of the children, right? Or the people, right? Because individuals, the personality of the individual or the preference of the individual uniquely about the family choices actually vary people to people. We don't think state can actually generalize and say, well, you should feel safe if you have family because maybe you will have a massive uncomfortableness by having family into your life, right? So that's the first reason why we don't think this criteria is valid. But secondly, right, we think it's fundamentally unjust for the state to regard single as something that should be fixed, right? But before that is
What is your stance on syntax?
syntax. What?
Syntaxのスタンスは何ですか?
Syntax in general? Okay, so I don't think that's that's so much relevant to this motion, but I don't think it's a sin to have a family in your life. So that's the stance. But no, thank you. Sorry. So why this is unfair, right? It's because we believe that because what this motion says what this motion says is that to say that the status of single should be fixed, right? Status of single is a burden in the society that you have to fix or you have to hold burden onto, right? So we think it's fundamentally unjust for the state to say this family choice to be invalid because at the end of the day, state is incapable actor to calculate the individual's happiness, right? So we think that's the reason why it's unjust for the state to discriminate people based on the family choices. But secondly, more importantly, right? We think how taking this proposal only victimize those who are most vulnerable in the society, right? So we have to be very clear about what kind of people we are talking about in this debate, or what kind of people are the most affected people by this motion, right? So we believe that those are the who that are not have less economical power to attract partner, right? Basically those are the people who who cannot attract by monetary power, but basically poor people, right? Because rich people can easily find partner by showing the economical status to the family, and we don't think they have the problem of finding a partner. But we think because attractiveness of an individual as a marriage partner is basically connected to the economic capability, right? And they say it's effective method to put tax on those. No, thank you. It's effective to put tax on those people, but never really shown any workability, right? Because if they can't find partner, I think they can. Okay. So especially because we believe that marriage is not just about dating somebody, but also is about stability and also making long-term relationship with your partner and then legally bind with that person, right? We think it's usual for the people to be very careful about economical status that your partner has. If your partner goes bankrupt, you have to be responsible for that partner too, right? So we think at this point, we think poor people are the most the most likely people who have struggle, who have difficulty of finding a partner, right? So what this motion actually does is to disproportionately victimize those who cannot get married just because cannot get money, and put tax on those people, put extra burden on those people, right? So we think it actually disproportionately harms those people just because you're not married. You have to pay for it. So then at the end of the day, who gets the harm the most is that the poor people. And those people cannot probably invest yourself and improve yourself to maybe look better by buying I don't know, beautiful products or something. And we think that we think that actually is counterproductive to what you want to say and want to protect and victimizes only people who are in need. That's why we oppose. Thank you.
Thank you for the year opposition for excellent speech. I'd like to welcome the deputy year opposition to make his speech with his empathy here.
Mr. Speaker, as a team with a vested interest not to have this tax introduced, I have two main questions in my speech in order to further our case. Number one, do people that decide to marry exclusively through tax become happier under their paradigm? Second of all, is this motion fair to those that do not marry under their paradigm? But before that, a few points of independent rebuttal that don't quite fit in. First of all, their case has basically been we need children, therefore we should introduce this policy. Number one, there's a huge principal contradiction that fundamentally undermines this case. Because if they thought this was true, they would be punished or taxing people for not having children, not being single. Because just because you marry does not mean you have children. But then they told us that we need a simple line in order to introduce that. The fact is, whether or not have a child or not is a simple line, end of story. But even if we were to accept this line, we say that this is a misallocation of burden. Because what you're essentially saying is that we should be punishing or taxing single people because we do not have children. We should be putting the burden on single people. But if their argument was true, we should be introducing a universal tax on all individuals because it's something that's necessary as a society or benefits society as a whole, or we should be imposing tax on individual couples who marry but do not have children because these are the people who have a capacity to contribute to society but are not doing so. Therefore, we think that them punishing people or taxing people for society's lack of children, even though those people are single and do not have the capability to have children, is a fundamentally flawed line. Therefore, the principal case has already fallen in this debate. Then they told us that we need education for children, or that people need money in order to sustain their livelihood through marriage. The problem is, we should just subsidize, for example, education. Or if it's really necessary, we should subsidize housework. The fact is, not everyone has children who is married, not everyone who has housewives who is married. We don't think it's okay to assume that these people are going to use this money and give the money to them in advance, because that's just a waste of money if they don't use it in that purpose. Just subsidize those actions. This made no sense. Then they told us that some choices should not be taken because the state dislikes them. Number one, we don't think it's okay for the state to say that I don't like this choice or I like this choice, because we don't think it's okay for the state to create a hierarchy between happiness of individuals, because that's something that individuals should choose. But more importantly, we also say that the state has, that in a democracy, the state does not own the people own the state. Therefore, we say that the state has no right to use individuals as a tool for social engineering to further the causes on their side of the house. So even if we accepted all their arguments, it's fundamentally unjust in a democratic society. That's why their case is flawed. So firstly, let's analyze whether or not people decide to become married through their policy really become happier in their paradigm. Because that's something that seems to be nuanced from Sayaka's speech and Prime Minister. We are going to undergo a marginal analysis because the people who are going to marry anyway are not relevant in this debate. So what kind of people are going to marry through the incentive of money? We have to recognize that individuals take choices through cost-benefit calculus. Therefore, if you think that the cost of marriage are worth it to receive the benefits of marriage, you are going to take that choice anyway, and you're going to receive the happiness or the difference in the happiness and the harms. What they're going to do is that they're going to put a tax exemption on these individuals. So therefore, the happiness of the tax exemption combined with the happiness of marriage now overrides the burden of marriage. That is the change in calculus that occurs. But we have to recognize that the happiness or the excess happiness that these individuals gain through this policy is not marriage, because this policy doesn't change the nature of marriage. Marriage is still going to be something that as a net calculus is going to be negative to these individuals, because that's the reason these people did not marry even when there was no tax exemption. When they have tax exemptions, the only excess happiness that these people gain comes from tax exemptions. So if you want to make people happier in your paradigm, then pay people in the first place who gets tax exemptions to everyone. This policy doesn't make people exclusively happy because it's economically nonsense. But more importantly, we also say that this easily leads to mistaken choices, or choices that rather harm the individual. Because we do agree, the individual calculus is not perfect. But we say the individual calculus is not perfect in a sense that people are too willing to go to marriage. Why is this? Because marriage is not something that you do over and over again. And we say that oftentimes people who enter into marriage are blinded by lack of experience in love. Because people cannot, because as much as I hate to say it, is like love makes you irrational, right? Everyone understands. We cannot properly calculate everything in when we are in love. So for example, you're not going to be able to calculate rationally the possibility of your feelings cooling down and you deciding to break up with your partner, or you becoming like bad, or you're not liking your partner anymore. There are also all sorts of probabilities. For example, you might choose future careers that make it more difficult for you to continue your relationship because you might have to, for example, go work overseas, which will make you undergo a long-term relationship, which is obviously something that's difficult, as Kamane would know. And we're going to also say that people fundamentally do not recognize or cannot recognize the sheer degree of responsibility that they are going to bear through through marriage in many cases. They don't necessarily anticipate, for example, the possibility of your partner borrowing money and you have to be paying that back, or you losing your property rights, or the possibility of divorce, which causes a lot of stress on these individuals, and oftentimes causes lots of money in litigation fees. All these things are things you cannot calculate in advance because people do not calculate all the costs in advance. They are often excessively optimistic. Those are sort of mistakes that people make. Therefore, we don't think this policy is going to make individuals happy when they take those choices. I'll take one example.
The state provides certain goods for the people, like army and safety, things like that. And because of that, in turn, the state can also ask the people to do things that benefit itself, like raise its population. Why does that correlation not work?
Okay, if you want people to have children, then you should be incentivizing that sort of action. You might want to, for example, like maybe help fund like childcare in those circumstances if it's so difficult. But the problem is there's nothing inherent to this motion, as I already told you in my first point. But more importantly, let's talk about whether this motion is fair to people who do not marry under their parents. So there are two main characters in this scenario, right? The first scenario is people who have no capability to marry even though they want to. We think this is massively unfair because you're essentially taxing people for not doing something that they would rather do. They are going to be excessively or disproportionately instigate harm in their paradigm, even though there's no responsibility for these people for their own unhappiness. This does nothing good. It's only an unfair share of burden. If you want to impose that sort of tax everybody. But secondly, even the people who have an incentive are not the individuals who should be taxed, because we think it's fundamentally unfair. Because the state has no right to discriminate against individuals for making any sort of choice. We already told you this down the line. We're more than opposed to sin tax. We're more than opposed to any sort of tax that deliberately tries to change your choice from the perspective of the state, just for the benefit of the state. But more importantly, also particularly or uniquely in the case of marriage, we think it's particularly harmful because marriage is an extremely large choice. It's a choice that shapes your entire life and shapes your future careers, shapes all the future possibilities. It disproportionately affects how you live and how you are able to live your full life. That's something that's extremely harmful because basically you're imposing a disproportionate burden on individuals for the sheer sake of having one more laborer in society. That's simply unfair from the allocation of burden or the proportionality of burden. For all those reasons, we're massively proud of our voice.
Thank you for the Deputy Leader of Opposition for his excellent speech. I'd like to welcome the Government Whip to make the speech from the Senate here.
ラッパーなラッパ
Right, side opposition came up with this idea that individuals are the only actors knowing themselves. It's strange when they stick to the idea, when the government is the only actor that cares about the society, that cares about the whole society. They kept on saying that like individual lifestyle is important without analyzing on comparing the societal benefit. When we have consistently mentioned from Prime Minister that everyone in the society needs the continuity, the sustainability, or the stability of the society, we believe that, and when they have not denied that fact, we believe that they have the burden of asking why that individual specific lifestyle cannot be even incentivized when that society has huge demands against it. Three things to mention. One, I'd like to answer the contradiction or clarification saying that they should tax child and those kind of things. Two, I'd like to engage their arguments about vulnerable people and marriage is dangerous. I'd like to answer why that is completely false. Why, as Kasumi and Saika has pointed out, why this form of marriage is rather better in terms of sharing responsibility. Three, I like to reinforce again our principle. Why state can, even given that identity or individual lifestyle is important, state still has the right and can, and people still has to obey to when there's a huge social demand. One by one. What about contradiction? They came up and said they should give some incentivized child. Well, we're not opposing giving subsidies to child, but we believe there's several reasons we still believe that this marital status is important. One, being married is in common liberal democracy society. It's mainly the entrance of making child or making child. I know there are couples who make child without being married, but being married is in the dominant cases the prerequisite of making a child. So we believe that in terms of incentivized entrance is still just. But two, already we have giving out many examples, even without child or without the benefits of child, the sustainability of this marital status is important. In case of husband and wife, if one of the partners goes bankrupt and they have huge debt, if that specific person runs away, the person who lent that money, the creditor, is in an extremely vulnerable place. He lent lots of money, but he has nobody who has his money paid back. And thus we believe this marital status of this shared responsibility is an extremely important form. Because now they have the shared responsibility from the perspective of the government. The creditor's right is recovered. And thus we believe in terms of the sustainability of the society, we believe that this type of shared responsibility is still important. Three, they mentioned DLO came up and said we should tax universally. Well, yes, we are taxing universally, but in this specific case, or in the children of marital status, only the couples who make the child, not the bachelors. The guys who have the bachelors are the ones who have to take the effort and time and money and responsibility of nurturing the child or nurturing child and so on. We believe that this this form of tax is the best for balancing out. But going on to the second one about vulnerable actors, because they kept on saying like marriage is extremely, DL kept on saying marriage is extremely dangerous, and like LO mentioned like they're vulnerable, discriminated, poor, and those kind of things. One, like if marriage is so dangerous, they should like ban marriage. We didn't hear any arguments why even incentivizing marriage is so bad. But two, more than that, we believe there are cases completely false. They came up with like rich-only marriage, which is statistically completely wrong. Like when we think of like 20 years old in Japanese people, the poor have more marital rate, right, Mr. Speaker? And three, I'd like to explain the reason of that, because like, the reason, we believe it's rather counterproductive. We think being married and sharing the responsibility is much more better, especially for the vulnerable people or the poor people they want to protect. Because like, as I mentioned earlier, they can share the responsibility and they can share the job. Like, if this marriage status, they stick together and be in a household, they can share the household and share the houseworks and share share the work that they can. But two, we already mentioned that they have the emotional stability. But three, as I mentioned, they can share the responsibility. If one side loses the job, the other can cover for it. In terms of risk sharing, we believe marriage is rather beneficial for these vulnerable poor people.
Okay, so considering the current divorce rates in current society, do you really think that in the long term or collective calculus, this sort of policy really makes people more likely to be collectively stable and happy?
Well, I don't know why that POI comes in place, because I'm talking about these couples which do having the forced marital status. If they go like out of divorce, like they can still have that chance for marrying, right, Mr. Speaker? Like we have clearly stated that while they are being married, they are sharing responsibility and in a rather comparatively stable status compared to bachelors. So three, why we can still say the state has the right? Because the outside came up and said like people don't exist for society, which rhetorically is true, but like the state has to do things and they can demand things for specific things. As Saka pointed out in the POI, state does lots of things like social welfare, police, safety, and lots of other things. They enable the well-being and life for the people, right, Mr. Speaker? And to do that, they have the cost. And thus we believe in exchange, they can, and people have the duty to obey. They can demand people. The government can ask for people for the society and government to maintain itself. And we believe this is completely the case, right, Mr. Speaker? Because we have clearly told you that without the continuity or sustainability of the society, these people cannot maintain their lives. We have the crucial necessity to maintain the society for life, right, Mr. Speaker. The other side we have talk as if like we're completely banning these choices. But in their paradigm, we still have like these. If you feel so attached to being bachelor and if you really don't want to marry, you still have the choice of being not married. And we believe that incentivizing itself is something that the society can demand. When the society receives huge benefit when they do have the marital status, and when the society receives huge harm when majority of people aren't married and the society cannot maintain its continuity and sustainability. We believe incentivizing is extremely just and we propose.
Thank you for the government whip for its excellent speech. I'd like to welcome the opposition whip to make his speech for the Senate.
Hello.
Hello.
The burden is not only to tell us that it is justified for the state to just encourage certain actions. They have to tell us why by that encouragement certain benefit can achieve on their side. They have agreed to us that they're going to impose certain burden to people who are not going to marry or who can't marry. They have to tell us what is justifiable to impose certain burden to individuals who does not marry, who can't marry, to achieve certain benefit that which they have failed to assure. I'll look at two things. One, does the state have a justification to impose a certain idea or a certain family lifestyle of individuals? Secondly, what sort of benefit arise from these taxes? Firstly, about what sort of stance to take in terms of principles. We have told you to start from the view of opposition. It is necessary for the state to respect the choice of individuals because we have told you states have no idea how it's going to be beneficial whether they should marry or not. They assume that it's only going to be beneficial to marry, but that's false. We have told you there are couples who breaks up, realize that marriage was wrong choices. It is, in terms of, for example, legal costs they have to pay when in terms of divorce, psychological trauma when they have to pay, psychological trauma they're going to receive when, for example, spread it out all the crowd they're going to have. We have to realize it's not going to be beneficial for every individual, and then they have to tell us why they have to enforce it, despite the fact it's not going to be beneficial for everyone. First reason we heard was, from the Deputy Prime Minister, that we have to encourage people because it's a fundamental need. People fundamentally need like eternal love and eternal relationship that is going to have instabilities. Firstly, if that logic is true that it's fundamentally necessary for everyone, everyone is going to have a child, everyone's going to have marriage, everyone does not make any sort of divorce, seeking for eternal love and sustainability. But obviously that's not factually true, right? The reason that is because people have chosen that is not fundamentally necessary for them, and there are lots of people in society who have decided that is not fundamentally for them. It is factually false. And again, there were no logic to say, just keep repeating that. They have a right to encourage certain choices without telling us why. There were no reason behind that except for these fundamental necessities. And moreover, well, we have to realize that everyone does not have a different value of what fundamental is, and they have no idea what fundamental value for every individual, for all for the societies, right? That's what individuals and that's what society decide, and if the individual have decided that's not a fundamental choice, that's not a fundamental choice. Moreover, even if we agree it's not a fundamental choice, we never heard why by this policy that is going to satisfy this fundamental need for societies, right? Given the fact that they have proved to us why they're going to have a lot more child, a lot more stability. They never showed us any sort of benefit. They never told us how their policy is going to satisfy this fundamental need, even if that made sense. Second, they told us states provide army and welfare, so like you have to pay back. It's a justification. Makes no sense. Firstly, we have already paid back to the benefit that states provide, for example, armies. If there are conscription, we have joined there, we have fulfilled the responsibility to pay back. If the society is giving us welfare, for example, we have already paid back to it by paying a corporate taxes, consumption tax, in any other way, which is different from like encouragement because we have paid all this corporate tax and consumption tax because that is necessary amount that we have to pay for the society to function, right? That is obviously different from state encouraging certain choices, and we have already fulfilled the duty to do so. And even if we assume that like states have a legal found obligation to seek certain payback from the people, they have to tell us what sort of payback they can see from the people, right? As long as they have failed to prove to us that there are no benefits, I'm going to show later on, as long as they have failed to prove to us there are no benefits from this policy, there is no way to pay back for the state, and therefore this policy is false. Thirdly, they told us from the Prime Minister that we have to share burdens, right? Obviously. That's what people have to do. Well, firstly, we never heard any logic behind why everyone has to share a certain burden for economies, right? For example, no one actually care about burdens, right? If you really have to care about burdens, everyone have to work until like 9 to 10 o'clock to seek for like more profit and revenue to pay taxes for the people. We never have to we're never allowed to smoke tobacco and die fast because that obviously kind of limit the responsibility and contribution to make the societies, right? Obviously, that has not happened. We're living in a society where individualism is paramount important, where choice is important, where people's happiness is important. They have conceded their societies and economies need necessary. That contribute at the end for the people's happiness. They have conceded people's happiness something very important, right? We have to realize there are no burden that people have to share. Even if the burden had to be shared on their side and we agree to it, they never told us why by marriage we can actually share certain burden within societies, right? And it is not like certain people who are married are only paying burden without taking any sort of benefit, and therefore we have to share burdens, right? No, people who have paid up certain burden have already received certain paybacks, right? If you actually, for example, hiring house workers, you have paid money for the economy, but you're also receiving that benefit for the job the house workers are going to do for you, right? If you have children, maybe you have paid certain duty to raise up a child, but you already received a certain payback from society by having a child. for self-satisfaction, for the fact that if the child grows up and becomes adult, they are going to take care of you when you actually become elderly and you can't move by yourself. Your children will take care for you. Those also benefit happen if you have the children, so forth, right? There are no idea for taking burdens. If you have taken burdens, you have already received for paybacks and benefits you necessarily have to have. Second, let's look at the idea of benefits, right? So they told us, firstly, well, they want to basically have a child. It's good things for the society, for beneficial, because you can have a child. Fourth, even if marriage does not mean you're going to have a child, obviously, right? The reason why in vast majority of the cases why married couple does not have a child in recent days is because of economical reason that you have to actually pay a huge amount of money for tuition fees or whatever, for the educational costs and also the food costs that have been rising in various countries, right? It is impossible for those people, even if they're married, to have a child. There's a problem solution. Mismatch, yes.
Okay, we already told you that individual choice still exists. Why do you think that the government does not even have the right to seek a society which sustains, which is sustainable?
Because it's not sustainable to impose taxes and force people to pay a lot more money without having any child. So, secondly, again, they told us social stability does exist, right? Without telling us what the social stability is, and it's a social stability is such an important thing. They never told us why 40% of the married couple in the United States have a divorce, right? Obviously, stability is not like a societal requirement, not people agree to it. Moreover, they told us they can share risk by borrowing money, and if one person runs out, I don't know, the wife can pay for it. Firstly, that kind of encourages the borrowing itself and does not seek for any sort of benefit. But even if you're without marriage, you can have an idea of joint surety, right? Which is called rente hoshon in Japanese, right? Even if you're not married, you can seek for some individual to be assurance for you to pay to borrow money. And if there was a burnable lender, they can seek money to other people, not from a wife. Benefits not exclusive on this point. And lastly, even if you concede that they're going to somehow have a child with this a horrible economic condition, people won't be able to have a child, but let's assume that. Even if they can have some small child, you never heard any sort of reason how that children is going to be beneficial for society to begin with, right? They didn't know what kind of the benefit they can see, what sort of conclusion we can see, and it's clear that by imposing a certain burden to individuals, which they also care about, which economy is for those poor people, right? If you're going to bully poor people for no good reason, there are no points of seeking for better economy and sustainable society by bullying poor. That's why we oppose.
Thank you for the opportunity for section speech. I'd like to welcome the opposition reply to most opportunities within corporate here.
Mr. Speaker, there's nothing in this motion that says that this policy inherently takes place in a society with the life of children. And there is no inherent connection or no inherent definite correlation between marriage and children. So the moment that their case was basically about incentivizing people to have children, they have already missed the entire debate that was supposed to be conducted. In that sense, they are already behind in this debate. I'm going to be answering two questions in order to clarify why our side of the House takes this debate. Number one, did the solution that they present match the problems that they depicted? Second of all, what's their solution? And where's the cost that this policy necessarily incurs? So firstly, did their solution match the problems that they depicted? The first problem, or the main problem coming from their bench, was a lack of children. They said that it leads to less workforce, less happiness, something like that. The question is, why do people who are married but do not have children uniquely get exempted from the burden of solving this problem? Because we would suggest, and we already clearly told you, that if you want to solve the problem of lack of children, then make bearing children easier. For example, fund childcare or like fund education, something like that. Why is the burden of that, or the burden that is, or the benefit, even though the benefit is shared by society, why does the burden exclusively fall upon the shoulders of single people? That was something that was never principally explained by this side of the house. If anything, it should be a universal tax or a tax imposed on people who are married but do not have children. But we never understood why responsibility fell on the shoulders of people who were incapable of having children. That was absolutely nonsense. Then they said that they want to make people happier through marriage because there's some goods that can be only attained through marriage. And we agree. Yes, there are people who are going to become happy through marriage. We don't disagree with that. We are more than happy to allow people who want to marry to marry. But the relevant comparison is whether or not individuals who marry exclusively through bachelor tax become happy, because that is the exclusivity between the two sides of the house. And we gave you a detailed analysis on why this was not the case. We already told you that if an individual thought that the benefit of marriage was something that were worth all the cost, they would take the choice anyway. Therefore, if they are only taking the choice because they have tax exemptions, then they are only then what they basically want is tax exemptions, not marriage. Marriage is not making them any happier. It's only making them more miserable along with tax exemptions. It's only that the net outcome is beneficial. So therefore, if you want to make people happy, like reduce taxes if you want to do that, this was simply something that also didn't stand in this case. So basically, there was no problem solution match on their side of the house. But secondly, even if we did agree to a certain extent the benefits that they achieve, are they worth the cost that this policy incurs? Number one, practically, because we all completely disagree with their notion that marriage necessarily makes every single person happy. We already told you that there's an extremely high probability of these people becoming even unhappier through marriage because they might divorce, particularly considering the reality of marriage where many people divorce even though they're married once. We're not saying that everyone who marries becomes unhappy, but what we're saying is that there is a significant probability of those marrying or increasing the number of people marrying actually making people more unhappy as a collective, particularly considering the choice analysis that we already gave from Deputy Leader, never responded by their side of the house. But also there's a principal case against this, because we say that individual happiness is the ultimate purpose of the state. They said, their side told us that it's okay to impose the burden on the individual. But the question is, why is it okay to take away the happiness only of individuals who choose to have a single lifestyle for the sake of the collective happiness of the entire society? Why is it okay to prioritize certain people and prioritize their happiness over the happiness of other people and create a hierarchy between the happiness or the worth of happiness of individuals? So something that's never explained, and something that we already told you was unjust, also not explained. But also from a utilitarian perspective, we never understood whether or not this trade-off was really worth it. Because the increased benefit of having one child is like having one person that works for several years. But we have to consider that it comes at the expense of binding one person to another person for a long period of time that they might not actually want to be bonded to, and forcing them to pay an extremely large amount of money just in order to get away from that person. This sort of individual life wrecking is something that we do not think is worth any of the benefits that there is at the house